Earl, he was filing for bankruptcy for the Live Free or Die church for the busy man. I guess his living free time had run out, and it was now time to make good on that state motto of promise to either live free or die. And I remember my mother telling me a story about Earl right before he died, when he was called to court for non-payment of child support for the final time, and he showed up with an oxygen tank, claiming ill health. He couldn't work. He didn't have any money. He was at rock bottom, and most likely he actually was at rock bottom. Overwhelmed by the stench of spearmint and dying from self-medication as a result of failed schemes and business deals, including even creating a church in which he could get redemption and forgiveness while also running a business. It was all for nothing. Because he didn't have the one thing he actually wanted: the love of his children, a relationship with his child, or at least that's what I'd like to imagine, and how I would like it to have been. There he is, the Earl of Manchester, entering the courtroom, dragging behind him his oxygen tank. Years, booze, smoking finally had taken their toll. But the spark of the entrepreneur, the businessman, and the self-appointed preacher were still there under the surface of this shell of a human being. Your Honor, says Earl, slowly moving down that center aisle of the Manchester courtroom. Some random mothers and fathers, and friends and relatives of all kinds, waiting in the audience for their turn to perform, sat looking on, and Earl in his gray-green velour tracksuit, echoing the upholstery of that interior of the Buick Regal. So you can see another well man. The labored breathing through the oxygen mask was contrasted by the otherwise silent courtroom of onlookers saying nothing. Perhaps they were taking notes for when it was their turn. I've hit some hard times, Your Honor. I just filed for bankruptcy for my business. The Live Free or Die Church had gone belly up, evidently. All those casino nights in the church basement, all for naught. The wheel of fortune had been spun and come up bankrupt. And since I wasn't there, my mother didn't really provide me with any details beyond this general impression of Earl in court. I will imagine the moment as if the Earl of Manchester were taking the Elizabethan stage at the Globe Theatre in 1606, the year of Lear. I am a man more sinned against than sinning, says Earl, in his wheezing, muffled way behind that mask. It was presumably helping him to breathe. You don't understand the misfortune I've had lately. The storm was gathering, rage, blow winds, and crack your cheeks. And I imagined him in that moment with the phones of the heavens ringing in his ears, calling him for one last deal and one last time to make a score and redeem himself and become the Earl of Manchester once again in his full-on big black Buick Regal mode, driving down that concrete slab of a highway, pulling up to his Live Free or Die church to face his God, to face his demons for the final time. Rage! Blow! Driving his mind to his ultimate destination, Spitfire, dodging the shower of bottles and the gods of fortune had rained down upon him from the heavens, spout rain, delivering his final soliloquy. Here I stand, knowing that this might be the end of the road and the big black Buick Regal might be parked forever on Jake de la Torre's dirt mound. A poor, infernal, despised old man. Wheels spinning, fortune spinning, and nowhere to go but down. Earl had finally run out of words. Oxygen tank groaning and gasping for air, labored breathing from behind his plastic mask, the only sound in that courtroom. And the last I heard, I was in college. It was the 80s. And I was performing in Shakespeare, a college theater production, not Lear, Midsummer Night's Dream. But as I got the news that the Earl of Manchester had lived free and died as a consequence, I imagine that sad scene, to die broken and alone as he had, and end up in Manchester, New Hampshire funeral home in a pine box provided by welfare services with no family, no friends, no children there to mourn him. And the reality is here that I am really trying to figure out what it means to be in a family, since I was never really in one, literally, yes, but figuratively, not so much. And what does it mean to be a father? I honestly can't say. Was Earl's arbitrary and perhaps unintentional but callous cruelty and selfishness and his constant schemes to achieve ultimately nothing at the end of his life after he spent so much time trying to not be Earl, only to not be Marcel, only to end up as Earl, and the Wheel of Fortune, which moves us all from bottom to top, has another feature that is often overlooked. We are all connected by our fortunes and misfortunes of our family, just as the medieval wheel shows us. Notice how the figures here are clinging to each other, onto those above and below in a vain attempt to pull themselves to the top or prevent themselves from being dragged down to the bottom. Is there an Elizabethan metaphor here for families, and especially fathers and their children? Can this cycle be broken by simply letting go of being pulled up or dragged down, by clinging on to our perception and definitions of ourselves as being somewhere in the hierarchy of where we think we are belonging on the wheel, where we are randomly assigned by a biological luck or not of the draw? Or are we just fortune's fools? And no matter what we do, the result will be the same. And now, as you probably guessed, you have this. When I spin this wheel of fortune, it's been rigged all along. I'm not sure if this is a metaphor or for fate or not, but it certainly is a literal, certainly not figurative. Gambling is all about the rigging, I mean. So I spin the wheel, virtual wheel of fortune. And it shouldn't surprise us that when it has landed on the wheel, has come full circle, I am here. And here we are, a real life wheel of fortune coming full circle. Wherever that here ends up for each of us is random. And is this illusion a sleight of hand to a card sharp's way of trying to beat the rig game, or does letting go of the person in front of you and shaking off the person below on the wheel the only way to break this cycle? I've tried many times to break the cycle and get down off the family wheel of fortune, only to realize I wasn't letting go at all, but simply under the illusion of rising and letting go, only to reach the summit of the wheel and be forced back down and to repeat the cycle again and again, never. Says Lear as he's about to die with nothing. Even though we all know it's rigged, and we still will spin the wheel of fortune, lest we should forget, controlled by the goddess Fortune. On the hope, like a second-rate Atlantic City gambler who plays even though he knows he can't beat the odds, like Earl, Marcel, on the off chance that your odds are a goddess, Lady Luck no less, can redeem us if we believe in her power long enough. So maybe it's time to return to that simple Elizabethan era where an actor stood on the stage all by themselves, just a bare platform with no lighting, No sound, no tech, no signal. Naked in front of a crowd in a field. Terrified of the Black Plague. But even during this pandemic, they went to shows despite all odds of sickness, poverty, and abuse by authority, to see a fellow human being trying to make sense of life, of a world with its chaotic, arbitrary madness, to get off our own personal wheels just for a moment in time. Before the inevitability of being spun around again and not knowing where you're going to land can be suspended by standing on the golden theater, surrounded by people with all the same desires, fears, and fraught families, with all these fathers and sons, mothers, daughters, somehow, to silence the storm for just a moment. It'd be cool here if everything shut down, and then I'll just read this last speech. The weight of this sad time we must obey. Speak what we feel, not what we ought to say. The oldest hath borne most. We that are young shall never see so much. If there's anything I want my child to know, it's this. Nothing will come of nothing if we don't speak what we say, if we don't speak what we feel, and not what we ought to say. So, spin that rigged wheel of fortune, and luck be a lady. Thank you. We'll be here all week.